Hey guys, today we're talking about cannonballing, and Mondays are my coaching days, and it's so funny because I'm bringing the fire today. I brought it to all my coaching calls, um, and the heat comes with the fire, right? And I'm going to share with you about cannonballing into the deep end and learning to swim on the way down. I feel like this has become a true core driver of who I am. Just understanding myself better and understanding how my strengths play out and what probably freaks the heck out of most people. Like, I love it. And so I'm going to share with you what I, what I just did last week. Um, you know, you guys are aware that God's had me on this journey through the wilderness. It started with taking me into the wilderness and breaking me of myself. Um, revealing to me some deeply rooted sins that I wasn't even aware of, like self-reliance, pride, putting myself on his throne for my own glory, like all of those things. Like, God really brought those to my attention. So if you haven't, go back and listen to the podcast episode called Into the Wilderness, and you can hear that whole story. The breaking came the shaking, and basically all of the things that I identified with, that I thought was who I was, the things that were driving me forward. God picked me up and shook me of all of those. And then, like, the final phase has been like the remaking, in the way that he wants me to go, the calling he's put on my life, stepping fully into that. And, you know, and recently revealing that I've just become too dang comfortable, because at the end of the day, like, you know, Zach has a great job and or a career, and we live comfortably, but at the same time, like, I have all these huge goals of becoming a seven-figure earner so I can be a six-figure giver, buying 100 acres of land and building a retreat type center, camp, something of that sort. Being able to live off of 45% of our income and giving the rest away. So many things, right? And it's just become so blaringly obvious to me lately that the patterns and the habits that we have are just not going to get us there. And especially for me as a coach, having my own health and wellness business, being a personal trainer, like, I have all of the avenues to be able to do these things, right? But because I haven't had any fire under my butt lately, to get it done, our brains are always going to choose what is known and safe and is not going to have any reason to get uncomfortable, right? But at the end of the day, the way that I make decisions is I have a gut feeling and I go with my gut, and it's never led me astray. But last week it was no different. As I said, God has been taking me on this journey, especially with money, dismantling a lot of broke beliefs about money that I've had, and helping me to rebuild them with just a wealth money mindset. And it's been crazy. Like, so much of it, I'm just like, wow, like, I just didn't even think about that, and how broke we are thinking, right? And none of this is to say that I'm discontent. Like, I am extremely grateful and content for everything that we have, how we're blessed. I'm not motivated by things like name brands or flashy things or blah blah blah. Like, I'm just not. But giving, I am motivated by that, by living out my purpose, my passion, my calling, doing what the Lord calls me to do, saying, "Here I am, Lord, send me." That is what drives me. Belief drives me, right? And so I go with my gut. I make decisions with that. And so last week, I cannonballed bigger than I've ever cannonballed in my life, and probably it nearly gave Zach a heart attack. I signed up for a coaching and mentorship program, a year-long program, with Grant Cardone. And I spent money on this program that I know I don't have right now. And the crazy thing, like I felt in my gut at that time that like this is exactly where I needed to be and this is what I needed to do. And I felt a lot of peace in that process. And then it wasn't until later that night that my brain started freaking out and was like, you have to pay this back. Like you can't fail at this, you know? And that's where I'm talking about that cannonballing and figure it out on the way down, because I know that anytime I invest in myself, in growth, in learning, I always grow, right? And then when you pair that with putting some skin in the game, taking big, massive action like that, that is scary, it becomes that fire under your butt that reveals to your brain that it is actually scarier to stay in your comfort zone, and feel the pain of that. Like that's actually not like, versus if you don't do this, right? Like if you stay in your comfort zone, what you're going to lose or miss out on or have to pay back because you didn't do the dang things, like that's worse, right? So getting uncomfortable, getting into action, showing up, doing the work, being a beginner, putting yourself in the room where you are the least successful person in that room, those, like, that's where I'm at. And so in that moment, like I had the same feeling that I had when I hit the first rank in Shackley back in 2016. I remember I was like, heck yes, I'm accepting that leadership rank. And then, as you know, if you're in network marketing, every month, right, is a monthly cycle where at the end of every month, the first day, your volume goes back to zero, right? And if, you know, you have returning customers, so it never actually goes back to zero, but it does. And I was freaking out in that moment, like, I'm either going to fall flat on my face and fail at this, or I'm going to figure out how to fly on the way down or on the way up, right? And I had that same feeling last week, later that night, of like panic of, oh my gosh, what have I done? Can I, can I go back and say like, just kidding, like I don't want to do this? All of those things were racing through my head, and like I had that like embodied feeling of like high anxiety, kind of freaking out, like did I make a mistake? And in that situation, it was the same feeling I had back then of, I'm going to figure this out. God led me here. We're going to do this, and he's going to faithfully provide, and I'm going to faithfully put legs on that prayer. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be a beginner. I'm cannonballing. I'm burning the boats. I'm just blowing up the bridges. Like, we're going to figure this out no matter what, right? And, what this does, though, is this helps your brain with that confirmation bias, right? Because our primal brain wants to protect us from perceived danger. And that's why we stay in our comfort zone, even though it's really uncomfortable, right? Especially if you're working towards a goal and you're just not happy with where you are anymore and you feel that discontentment, right? It's not really discontentment. It's just that you're not satisfied with staying the same, right? Like you want to push, you want to grow, all those things, right? So what your brain does is it's looking around for evidence to support the belief that we're good right here. Like this is safe, this is known, we're good. But when you force your brain into this panic mode, what you do is now you force your brain, because it's seeing that if I don't do this, that is going to be way more painful than get out of my comfort zone. You're forcing your brain to use that confirmation bias to look for all the ways that this will work out, looking for all the ways that we can figure this out, we can make this work, and we're going to do it no matter what. No matter how uncomfortable we have to get, we're going to make it work. And too often, I mean, you probably know this, right? Our dreams go to die in our comfort zone, and that's a problem. So our dreams go to die in our comfort zone. Why? Because there is nothing holding us to it. It's easy for us to look around and be like, I'll do that later. Or, that can wait, right? Because there's no real pressure on us. I heard a quote recently that said, underperformers, oh, shoot, no, I can't remember what it was said. I just thought it was so good because, let's see. I'm going to pull it up here and see what it says. But it said underperformers want ease, mid-performers want credit, and winners want pressure. That's by Cody Sanchez. And when you think about it, how are diamonds created? They're created with carbon under immense pressure for a long period of time, right? And when we think about our goals, if we don't have any fire under our butts that are propelling us forward, then why? Right? If you went to the doctor tomorrow and they said if you eat one more cheeseburger, you're going to die, are you going to go eat a cheeseburger? Or are you going to radically change your diet? Or how about not even you? How about your kids, right? Like, what if you went to the doctor and they said, your kid's going to die tomorrow unless you radically do X, Y, and Z? What are you going to do? I guarantee you're going to do X, Y, Z, and then you're also going to add on a few other things just in case, right? Or you go to the doctor and they're like, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to take it into your own hands and you're going to figure it out, right? Because now you have fire under you. You have pressure. You have something compelling you to get out of the known discomfort, to get into intentional discomfort, and to keep moving, because at the end of the day, the loss of not going active is way greater than anything that you feel right now, right? Like any kind of discomfort. And so this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about cannonballing into the deep end and learning to swim on the way down. It's lighting a fire under your butt so that you get into action and you stay in action regardless of what anyone's telling you, regardless of what is going on in your life, regardless of anything else or anyone else. Like, you are going to do it regardless, because God has called you, and you are going to put your legs on that prayer, and you are going to get into action, massive action, and make it happen. And you are implementing a way for your brain, right? Your reactive, protective, primal brain that has perceived dangers that it's keeping you safe from in a reactive way. You are essentially shutting that off and getting into that consciousness of being able to think through things rationally and looking for evidence that we can figure this out, we can make this work, we have to. How are we going to do it, right? You've probably heard of affirmations, but have you ever heard of afformations? This is playing off that confirmation bias. And what you can do, is before going to sleep at night, you can actually work with your subconscious to find more of the how or the who by forming these thoughts of, how is it that I am a 7-figure earner, right? And so, how is it that I now make $5,000 a month? How is it now that I, have 10 people on my team who are actively building their businesses? How is it that I am fit and I'm, competed in this thing and I did this? And so you're asking yourself, you're posing a question, you're forming a question as if you've already attained it. And then when you're going to sleep, you're having your brain work for you. And a lot of times you'll wake up in the morning and you will have some clarity and you will have some answers. Now, is it magic? No. But it is something that can be really helpful. And I highly recommend that if you are someone like me and you have great ideas in the shower, or you have great ideas when you're out on a walk, when you're moving your body, but you don't necessarily have a way to write it down, well, get creative and put, have your phone next to you so you can use the Notes app or record something quickly. And that's going to be really, really helpful in the long run. You guys, someone who is stuck in my business or feeling like I'm feeling the discomfort of, I have these bigger goals, but I'm not creating the results. And honestly, I'm not feeling super motivated to get into action and to stay into action, to do the uncomfortable things, because I'm comfortable here, right? These are the things that I have done. And I have recently been reminded of this last week signing up for this program, is that, there are 3 things that I recommend doing. The first one is, how can you get in the room of people who are more successful than you, who have done what it is that you're trying to do, or have, are even further than you, right? Because if you're the most successful person sitting at the table or you're the most successful person in the room, you are not going to grow. You are going to cap that lid down on your growth and you're going to feel good about yourself, but you're not actually going to create results, bigger, better results, right? So get in a room with people who are going to challenge you, who you need to be a beginner. You need to learn from them. Put on your curiosity hat and lean in and learn everything that you possibly can. The second one is hire a coach, someone who's done exactly what you're trying to do or has a framework for helping you to get into massive action, but also who isn't a dime a dozen, who is charging you $100, right? Someone who is actually charging a hefty fee because they know their time is valuable and your time is valuable, and they're working exclusively with people who are willing to take action and do the messy mindset work, right? Putting skin in the game, right? If you want to increase your income, you better increase your investments into yourself and your learning and growth and development, right? That's something that I've always done, and it has always produced a greater return on investment in the long run, for how much I've grown and what the capacity that it's increased in me to be able to show up as. And then the third one is to get brutally honest with yourself. Are you happy with where you are right now? Now, I don't want you to confuse this with discontentment, as I said, right? Like, this is not being discontent. This is being 100% grateful for where you are, how far you've come, the blessings that you have, stewarding those well, obviously, but also knowing that you are made for more and you are called to more and you are called and being challenged to show up differently, right? In a bigger, scarier way than you ever have before. And be honest with yourself, right? Like, are you too comfortable? And what would it look like to get you uncomfortable, to light that fire under your butt so that you show up no matter what? So that's my challenge for you today. Pick one of those three and do it. And I do have openings now for one-on-one coaching. It is exclusive. I'm only opening up for 5 people because I want to be able to give my full capacity to each person that I'm working with. And I want to be able to challenge you to cannonball and to have a strategic plan for the future that you walk out today with consistency, right? I want to hold that mirror up to you to help you to be brutally honest with yourself and do the things you need to do in order to change the things. Because if you don't change anything, nothing's going to change. That's such an obvious statement. And yet, how often do we stay unchallenged in our comfort zone, even though we're uncomfortable because we don't really want to be here, but we're not actually willing to burn the boats, cannonball, blow up the bridges in order to move forward? What are we willing to put on the line? Because someone who has something bigger to lose than just getting uncomfortable is going to show up differently than someone who's like, well, it's pretty good. It's good, right? Like, we're going to start making excuses for why we don't need to get uncomfortable. We're going to start making excuses for why it's not so bad. I'll just be content here, right? And that's not what we want. That's not going to move the needle. That's not going to grow us or grow our capacity to be able to show up in a different way, the way that God's calling us to be, right? So that's my challenge for you is consider one-on-one coaching if it's the right time for you to cannonball. And if it's not, how can you get in the room with people who are more successful than you? And at the end of the day, spend some time journaling and digging into being honest with yourself and where you're at and what you need to actually take action consistently and get uncomfortable on purpose for a purpose, because what you have to lose in not doing it is greater than actually doing it. And that's going to keep you moving forward, my friend. All right, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you could hear over the chaos in the background. And if you're watching the video, you've seen lots of kids running behind me, trying to steal the spotlight, and that's okay because we're coming into the summer months. This is our last week of school, and we're excited for a busy summer. But also, we're getting ready to send Zach off to Kansas for his year-long thing for his career. And so I'm going to be here working, doing my thing, and, things are about to change, and it's entering a new season. and it's going to be very easy to let the summer months take us off track and say, we'll get back to that in the fall, right? And what's it gonna look like if we do that? And what's it gonna look like if we don't do that? If we keep showing up consistently through the summer months and make a new schedule and a new system that works for us no matter what season we're in. Take care, my friend.